Hello, hello. Today is Sunday, May 28th, 2023. It is Memorial Day weekend. And I just figured I'd do a quick walkthrough on the garden to show you what's changed and what's happening. So we're entering on the very west side of the garden here. That's south and north. There's a garden shed. We've got the electric fence going all the way around. One of the projects today was taking absolutely everything out of this garden shed and putting shelving up and rearranging. So it's a little bit more useful. All right, that being said, I'm going to take you over to what's changed since the last video. That first row of potatoes here on the outside, we're not really seeing anything come up yet, but that's okay. I haven't lost hope yet. Here we've got our green beans. They are just starting to pop out of the ground. These are called rattlesnake beans. They grow really well and produce quite a bit. Excuse me, I've got a bunch of dirt and dust in my nose and sinus cavities wreaking havoc on me from being out here and stomping around and working in the garden shed. Here's a potato. Just coming up. He's been in the ground two-ish weeks now. We've got a few more coming up here and there, but I expect over the next week or so most of these rows will have nice little potatoes coming up. We had some excitement earlier yesterday. We had 10 to 20 mile an hour winds out here. And as I was over here planting kidney beans and pinto beans, one of the 70-foot tarps let go and took flight like a great big kite. So that was fun, trying to wrestle it back down to the ground, but we got her done and put a whole bunch more staples in so that won't happen again. These are more potatoes here. You'll see on the ends that we've got grass issues. That's because that was newly broken ground this spring. And just gotta wait for the plants to come up so that we can take care of that weeding. As I'm doing these little tours through the garden, there's gonna be times where, yeah, there's a lot of weeds, because you know what? It's a lot. And we'll do the best that we can, but yeah, I'm not gonna wait until the garden looks perfect to show it to you, because then you'll probably never see it. But it's always a work in process and progress. There's basil and tomatoes. Those are Rutgers tomatoes. Again, we've got like 10 or 12 different variety of tomatoes throughout, and those guys are doing okay. Everybody needs some water. So one of the changes that we've noticed up here at the farm is it seems to be much windier than I remember it being when I was a kid. And with the sandy soil here, anytime you get rain or water the garden, we just watered on Friday night and it's Saturday. And here's, what it looks like. It's dusty and, dry. So that wind just sucks the moisture out of the top layer of soil. The tarps do help hold some of it down. So, some of these guys look a little bit taxed. I think it was 82 or 84 today. So it's one of the warmest days that they've ever experienced. You might be thinking also, those tomatoes are way too close together. Well, yeah, they kind of are. And here's the plan for that. So straight down the middle of this row, we're going to run a fence with T-posts and sheep fencing, kind of like what you see there. And we're doing that because that's what we have on hand. We're gonna have to buy some more T-posts, but this is not about, spending a whole bunch of money, because we're doing this to eat and can grow healthy food and to do it as inexpensively as we can. So I would love to buy more cattle panels, but each one of those costs about $32 a piece, and run those straight down the middle. And maybe that's in the future, but not this year, and that's okay. So the fence is going to go right down the middle of the tomatoes. The tomatoes are going to be pruned excuse me, and attached to the fence. By pruning the tomatoes, they don't get as crazy and bushy as you might be used to seeing with your standard tomato cages around them. And by pruning them, you help the plant put its energy into blooms and fruit instead of growing additional foliage. So this will be the first time I've ever tried pruning tomatoes. We'll see what happens. Of the 91 I put in, 90 so far have survived, so we'll see how that turns out. This is a new trellis as of this weekend. This is purely for fun and whimsy, if you will. I planted both sides with morning glories, a few different varieties, and I'm excited to see them grow up and around and over the top, and just be a pretty thing to look at in the middle of the garden, and also something to attract pollinators, because all of the plants in the garden will benefit from pollinators being here. Over here, there's not really much to see. We've got onions that were planted in there today. What else? I think there's beets and turnips. Just a couple of real short rows. Just that we have some. We planted some additional melons. I think there's watermelon, and this was a volunteer. So this guy was growing right next to one of my tomatoes in one of my little tomato holes. He looks a little weak right now, but we'll get some water on him and he'll perk up. I have no idea what it is, so that might be interesting. My mom composts out here, and this spring we put her compost on the garden. So, you know, it could be a seed from a melon that we ate 2-3 years ago and just decided it's time to pop. So we'll see what happens there. This is spaghetti squash and a couple of other kinds of squashes and melons. Yeah, that'd be a long video if I tried to go through every single thing. These are more tomatoes. They seem to be doing okay. And yeah, I have no idea what those are. I think my mom planted them today, maybe? What is this? Oh, it's a ground cherry. Yeah, ground cherry. Those are interesting things. Google them really quick. They have this weird husk on the outside, but they're fruity and kind of fun. Learned about them through my sister, so planted a few this year. These teeny weeny guys are all peppers. We did start these inside. Man, they're taking forever. So these peppers are, I think there's habanero and jalapeno. Hopefully those guys will pull through. This was the tarp that took flight on us. So as a result, the plants that are in here look a little peaked because they got beat to heck when this thing raised off the ground. But these are watermelons, and I don't know, what is this? That's a honeyboat delicata. Planted that for Colleen. That's one of her favorite squashes. So yes, Colleen, I did plant your squash. There it is. It's doing okay. I've got a couple more of those as we go down the line here. I've got a zucchini over there that hasn't really started doing much of anything, but zucchinis, I'm pretty sure, like cockroaches, they can survive the apocalypse and still produce prolifically. And then we finished planting up around here. These are tomatillos. They got really leggy and kind of goofy looking from the starts that we put in. So fingers crossed, those guys do okay. We do have a panel and a half of nothing at this point. Gotta figure out what's to put in there. I did some birdhouse gourds just for fun. I tried to start some of those, but they didn't work out, so I tried direct sowing, and we'll see what happens. These guys are cucumbers. They're actually starting to get little vines. So by the next time we're up, hopefully these guys will have taken to the fence and started climbing. Got cukes over there too. A couple different varieties. And on the end panel here, I planted again something very frivolous and not good for anything other than to look at and enjoy. They are just blooming peas. Supposed to be really fragrant vines that should climb up and all the way over and be pretty to look at, attracting more pollinators to the garden. So, I don't know how this happened, but these guys I had marked as San Marzano tomatoes. Let's see the stake right there, San Marzano. That is not a tomato. And a lot of them came up. So, we're thinking that those are cabbage of some kind. And we've planted a marigold every other plant. And we'll see what they produce. I guess that's the fun of the garden. You know, you just never know what's gonna do well, what's not. Mystery plants, yeah, that's kind of fun. So, that's it. That's all for this Sunday. Hopefully more to report within the next week. This tomato should really start to take off over the course of the next week. They're usually in somewhat shock for the first week that they're outside and in the ground, and then they start taking off, so it should be fun. Thanks for watching.